Okay, picture this. It's December 4th, 1872. You're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, just hundreds of miles from land, and a ship appears on the horizon. But something's wrong. It's moving weirdly. Its sails are all torn up. As your ship gets closer, you realize there's this chilling silence. This is the moment the Mary Celeste mystery begins, and it is maybe the greatest ghost ship story ever told.
And that's really the core question, isn't it? The one that's haunted people for over 150 years. I mean, the ship was totally seaworthy. It was stocked with food and water for months, and yet all 10 people on board, the captain, his wife, their 2-year-old daughter, and 7 crewmen, had just vanished. Gone.
Everything that matters in this mystery, it all goes down in this tight 10-day window. The ship leaves New York, everyone's full of hope. The captain makes a totally routine log entry on November 25th, they're near the Azores Islands. And then, radio silence. For 10 straight days, that ship sails on its own until it's found. So what on earth happened in those 10 days?
So, let's step on board with the sailors who actually found her. These guys were from a Canadian ship called the Dei Gratia, and they rowed over to the silent vessel. What they discovered wasn't a scene of some bloody battle or a shipwreck. It was something much, much weirder.
The scene was just confusing. Yeah, there was some water in the hold, about 3.5 feet, but nothing that would sink a ship. And get this, the crew's personal belongings, even their money and valuables, were completely untouched. There was a 6-month supply of food and water, so this wasn't a sinking, and it definitely wasn't pirates. But, and this is key, 2 things were missing: the ship's only lifeboat and the captain's navigational tools. It looks like they left in a hurry, but a strangely organized hurry.
You know, to really solve this, we can't just look at the clues. We have to remember the people. This wasn't just some cargo ship. For 10 human beings, this was their entire world, their home, and what they thought was their future.
The ship's manifest, it tells the story. We have a well-respected captain, Benjamin Briggs, and he's traveling with his wife, Sarah, and their little 2-year-old daughter, Sophia. He had a hand-picked, professional crew with him. This wasn't some random collection of rough sailors. This was a small, tight-knit community getting ready to cross an ocean together.
And these are the captain's own words, from a letter he wrote to his mother right before they sailed. It is just heartbreaking to read now. He's so proud of his ship, so happy to have his family with them. There's not a single hint of fear or trouble, just the simple, honest hope for a fine passage.
And then there's this, a single decision, one made out of love and what seemed like common sense, ended up sealing the family's fate. They left their 7-year-old son, Arthur, back home with his grandma so he could go to school. It's a choice any parent might make, but it's the one that tragically made him an orphan and the only survivor of his family's last voyage.
Now, for Arthur and the other families waiting for answers, the official inquiry was supposed to bring clarity. But when the Mary Celeste was towed into Gibraltar, the man in charge, a prosecutor named Frederick Solly Flood, was absolutely convinced he was looking at a crime scene. And boy, was he going to twist every single fact to fit his theories.
This guy, Solly Flood, he was obsessed. First, he claims the crew got drunk on the industrial alcohol in the cargo hold and murdered the Briggs family. Problem was, the cargo was basically poison, undrinkable methanol. Then he accused the 2 captains of faking the whole thing for insurance money, which made 0 sense. Finally, he accused the very men who found the ship of being the murderers, and he had no evidence for any of it. None.
This really shows you just how much damage Solly Flood's wild theories did. After months, the court found no evidence of foul play, but the suspicion he created just lingered. The rescuers, the Dei Gratia crew, were only awarded £1,700, a tiny fraction of what the ship and cargo were worth. The message was loud and clear: we can't prove you did anything, but we don't believe you're innocent. He totally poisoned the well, staining the reputations of good sailors for years.
So with all the simple criminal theories debunked, the story just became a blank canvas for fiction. And the most famous version came from none other than Arthur Conan Doyle, the guy who created Sherlock Holmes. His sensational story introduced all these errors that, honestly, people still believe today, like calling the ship the Mary Celeste and this myth about warm meals being left on the table. The reality was a lot wetter, a lot messier, and frankly, way more interesting.
Okay, so if it wasn't pirates, or a drunken mutiny, or some mythical sea monster, what was it? Well, to find the most likely answer, we have to tune out all the fiction and just follow the science. And the science points us to one very specific place, the cargo hold. The prime suspect is the cargo itself, 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol, which is incredibly flammable stuff.
Now, investigators at the time found that 9 of those barrels were empty. And here is the absolute crucial detail. Those specific 9 barrels were made of porous red oak. The other 1,700 barrels, they were made of sturdier white oak, and they were fine. So the alcohol wasn't drunk, it had leaked, basically turning the cargo hold into a giant floating bomb of explosive vapor.
Now, for decades, the explosion theory had one major flaw. People asked, well, if there was an explosion, where are the burn marks? That puzzle wasn't solved until 2006, in an experiment at University College London. Researchers proved that alcohol vapor can create something called a pressure wave explosion. It's this huge, terrifying boom and a flash of flame that's over so fast it literally doesn't even leave a scorch mark. It's a traceless explosion.
So, with this science in our back pocket, we can reconstruct the most likely final moments. The barrels leak. Some random spark, maybe from metal tools, maybe static electricity, ignites the fumes. Boom! A huge, terrifying but physically harmless explosion blows off the main hatches. Captain Briggs, fearing a second, much bigger blast is coming, makes a very logical call. Get everyone into the lifeboat, tie it to the ship with a long rope, and wait at a safe distance. They fully intended to come back.
It was a sensible choice, made in a moment of pure terror. But that temporary evacuation was about to become permanent, all thanks to one final, tragic twist of fate.
And that final twist was the weather. The last log entry was on November 25th, and wouldn't you know it, historical weather data confirms a major storm with gale-force winds slammed right into that exact area on that exact day. So there they are, in a tiny lifeboat, tethered to their ship, right as a massive squall hits.
A sudden, powerful gust of wind catches those big sails, the tow line snaps, and just like that, they're cut adrift. Can you even imagine the horror of that moment? Watching your ship, your home, your only hope of survival, a perfectly sound vessel, just sailing away from you in a storm, leaving you stranded in a tiny boat in the middle of the vast, empty Atlantic? And what about the Mary Celeste herself? Well, she could never escape her own legend. She was seen as a cursed ship. She passed through 17 different owners in just 13 years. And her end was just as tragic as her story. She was deliberately wrecked on a reef in Haiti as part of an insurance scam. Just a sad, pathetic end for such a famous ship. And what about Arthur, the little boy left behind? He grew up, he got married, he lived a quiet life, and he passed away in 1931. He and his wife never had children, which means that with his death, Captain Briggs's direct family line just ended. The tragedy was absolute and complete.
So after all this time, after science has given us a very likely answer, why are we still so fascinated by this ghost ship? Why does the Mary Celeste just refuse to fade away?
I think it's because the story's endurance comes from a perfect storm of ingredients. You have these core facts that are genuinely eerie and totally verifiable. You have an official investigation that only made things more mysterious by ruling out all the simple answers. Then you have sensational fiction that just captured the public's imagination and blurred the lines of reality forever. And at the heart of it all, you have a deeply relatable human tragedy. A family, a child, lost at sea, that just makes this story feel real and immediate, even a century and a half later.
In the end, we have a theory that fits all the evidence. It's a really compelling, scientific solution to a 150-year-old mystery. But we can never be 100% certain, can we? The only people who know the absolute truth were those 10 souls in that tiny lifeboat, and their story was lost to the long, final silence of the ocean.
And so, another chapter closes. For more journeys into history's forgotten files, please like and subscribe. Your next story awaits.